Welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is the 30th of March. We got one more day left of March, and then we have, what is it? April Fool's Day. We have Easter. Passover. We have Easter. This is the first time that I know of. I mean, I didn't do any research here. Scratch that. Strike that from the record. It must have been a while since this has happened. All three of those converging. I don't know if it's ever happened before, but it's crazy. I was talking to this lady at the gym today, and I don't think she's a Christian at all. But even she was like, man, it's just so weird. I don't know. It's crazy. It's like when you go to the grocery store and your total equals like exactly $56. She has a northern accent like that. It's just really funny. But I'm serious. It's kind of crazy. And then all of a sudden, with all of this stuff, the Pope comes out and says there ain't no hell. So Armageddon comes on the 1st. April Fool's Day, Easter, Passover, it all converges and ain't nobody going to hell. That is good news. Horatio is an atheist, and he's the one that he came to me. You already had this queued up, but he said, did you hear that the Pope said there's no hell? And I said, oh dear, he's kind of pretty much a joke. But then I thought, you know what? That's really good news for you, Horatio. That's what I said to him. Sorry, I just couldn't help myself. I thought it was hilarious. I do have a sick sense of humor.
So anyways, this whole thing has just gone haywire, and I'm just going to report on it as it is.
I'm cracking myself.
We're not going to go into debate necessarily if there is a
come
heaven
on,
or hell,
can't
but
we please?
I have so much news we can't spend all day on the Pope and his stupidity. But the Vatican has denied that Pope Francis told a well-known Italian journalist that there is no hell. The quote came in an article in Italy's La Repubblica daily, but the Vatican said no quotations in the article should be considered as a faithful transcription of the Pope's words. The article said, the Vatican said the article was based on a private meeting the Pope had with the daily's founder, Eugenio Scalfari. The Catholic Church doctrine affirms the existence of hell and its eternity. The souls of sinners descend into hell, where they suffer eternal fire, the Catholic Catechism states. However, Cardinal Vincent Nicholas, the senior Catholic in England and Wales, said there's nowhere in Catholic teaching that actually says one person is actually in hell. We could go.
Are we going to play that video that you just played a second ago?
He told the BBC that the Pope was apparently exploring the imagery of hell, fire, and brimstone and all of that. According to the article on Thursday, Scalfari asked the Pope where bad souls go and where they are punished, and the journalist is an avowed atheist. Souls are not punished, the Pope was quoted as saying.
That's good news.
Those who repent obtain God's forgiveness and go among the ranks of those who contemplate him. But those who do not repent and cannot be forgiven disappear. There is no hell. There is a disappearance of sinful souls. The Vatican said that it has not, that it had not been an interview, but a private meeting on the occasion of Easter. And Scalfari's article is the fruit of his own reconstruction.
Horatio said, just tell her. That's you. You're the her. The interviewer has a history of not being entirely accurate in his notes. The real story is the bishops around the world who are backtracking, saying they never said hell was true, even though they said it was. They'd rather be liars than give up their power. And the power being holding that over people. You know what I mean? If there's a hell, then the Catholic Church can use that to hold it over people. If there's not, then now they lose their power. Kind of difficult for all of them.
Well, they also have to stay step in line with the Pope. That's how you also have power. So
and the dude is like, okay, Catholics are supposed to be the original church, okay, which means they've got like dibs on the Bible, which means that they should be following the Bible. And this current Pope seems to be above the Bible and has backtracked on everything in the Bible.
It tends to be a running issue with popes.
Pope apparently was exploring is the imagery of hell. And I don't think the imagery of hell, as you quoted,
Dante's Inferno.
The existence of is a straightforward consequence of our freedom of choice. And all the Catholic teaching says is if a person makes a final, deliberate, irrevocable approach a decision to reject any notion, any response, any willingness to be open to God, then that's a definitive decision that separates them from God.
And then what happens?
Well, who knows? I mean,
Who knows?
as I say,
We know.
the image of fire and brimstone and all of that, that's never been part of Catholic teaching. It's been part of Catholic iconography, been part of Christian iconography, but it's never been part of teaching. In fact, there's nowhere in Catholic teaching that actually says any one person is in hell.
Which actually, that's not true.
Because St. Augustine had the wonderful expression of the man committing suicide. He said, between the bridge and the water, the mercy of God can get him.
Okay, you know what? And that is absolutely true.
He's not wrong there, right?
Right.
He's absolutely not wrong there. There are places all over the world where the gospel has never been preached. Okay?
I want to explain that. Between the bridge and the water.
You have dog slobber on your shoulder?
Even God can reach you there. So if you're committing suicide and you're jumping off a bridge, okay, God can even get you between the bridge and the water. There are people who are definitively not going to go into rapturous angelic post. Michelle and I have this saying, whether an atheist or not, and it's, if you don't want to spend eternity with God, worshiping God, he ain't gonna make you be there.
Right.
So for an atheist,
I don't care how good of a person that you are. Right. I don't care if you're a Christian.
Right.
If you do not want to spend eternity worshiping and being in awe of God,
he ain't gonna make you be there, baby. He ain't gonna take you there.
Yeah.
You know, so I see it as kind of like a reverse psychology type thing. If you don't want to be with God, worshiping God, he's not going to make you be there.
Right, but there's only two options. The other one's not a good idea. Ed Kemper on our Facebook Live. Welcome all of our Facebook Live viewers. It's good to know that the Pope, leader of the Catholic Church, follows the Bible so closely.
In reaction to reports that Pope Francis has denied the existence of hell, the Vatican has released a carefully worded statement that does not refute the substance of the claims. The Holy Father Francis recently received the founder of the newspaper La Repubblica in a private meeting for the occasion of Easter without giving him an interview. So it's totally different, I guess. What is reported by the author in today's article is the result of his reconstruction, in which the Pope's exact words are not cited. No quotation of the aforementioned article must therefore be considered as a faithful transcription of the Holy Father's words. That's like saying, are we going to defund Planned Parenthood? And you say, well, let's just not talk about it, and you'll see what happens when it comes out in the omnibus. Oh, look, we didn't defund Planned Parenthood, even though we said we were going to.
True. Chris Holman, if you guys aren't subscribed to his channel, please go and do so now. Just left a comment in here, and he is Catholic. And he said, anyone that thinks that hell is not in Catholic teachings needs to read the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Very true.
In other words, the Vatican denies that the article contains a faithful transcription of the Pope's exact words without taking issue with the basic content of the conversation. What is interesting is what is not said. The statement does not say that the author's reconstruction of the conversation is erroneous, nor does it deny that the Pope said that hell doesn't exist. So what I love is that everyone is reporting on this. CNN, the BBC, it's Easter, and I love...
Horatio's the one that told me. I had no idea.
That everyone is coming to the defense of said Pope. Scalfarian atheist reportedly asked the Pope about his theories regarding creation and eternal life. Your Holiness, in our previous meeting, you told me that our species will disappear in a certain moment, and that God, still out of his creative force, will create a new species.
Sure.
You have never spoken to me about the souls who died in sin and will go to hell to suffer for eternity. You have, however, spoken to me of the good souls admitted to the contemplation of God. But what about the bad souls? Or where are they punished? The paper reports. In response, Pope Francis is quoted as denying hell in what the Vatican statement has referred to as a reconstruction. There is no hell. There's just a disappearance of sinful souls. The Catholic Church clearly asserts the existence of hell, and here's the Catechism. The teaching of the Church affirms the existence of hell and its eternity. Immediately after death, the souls of those who die in a state of mortal sin descend into hell, where they suffer the punishments of hell and eternal fire. The chief punishment of hell is eternal separation from God, in whom alone man can possess the life and happiness for which he was created. and for which he belongs. It goes on to say, the affirmations of sacred scripture and the teachings of the church on the subject of hell are a call to the responsibility incumbent upon man to make use of his freedom in view of his eternal destiny, yada, 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 yada. On numerous occasions, Pope Francis has downplayed the importance of doctrine, the official teaching of the church on matters of faith and morals. Being a Christian does not mean primarily adhering to a certain doctrine, he said, but rather binding one's life to the person of Jesus. And I don't really have a problem with some of what he says. There's a lot of ways to look at Jesus and salvation and things like that. And so I believe that God looks at the heart and not just people randomly going around saying, I'm a Christian. That being said, there most definitely is a heaven. So if there is a heaven, Hitler is not there. Stalin is not there.
And they did not just disappear, because the Bible is very clear about eternal torment.
Yeah.
So they're there. That's where they are.
Yeah. Pope, he's got his own little thing. I mean, he's got his own little thing. I mean, he believes that, like, we're going to cease to exist and God's going to create a whole new species. I don't know if he, like, wants to, you know, expound or make us better. We're going to look more, a little bit more like Avatar or something. Maybe blue.
You know what? Avatar, that's weird. I don't want to become the Avatar. No, I do not. Chris says, I do not like our Pope. He must be endured. I don't like the Pope either. This Pope flies in the face of everything that I actually appreciate about the Catholic Church.
Right.
Which there are a lot of things. And all of those things that I appreciate about the Catholic Church, he pretty much has...
Except, I will say, that he did call for a coming together, the 500-year anniversary of Martin Luther.
True.
Between the Lutherans and the Catholics. So that's pretty cool. We're going to move on from that. We're going to go to the Holy Land. We're going to stay in our little Holy Week, Holy Land thing. I mean, it is Easter weekend coming up. Violent clashes as thousands of Gazans march near the Israeli border. I guess Israel killed 6 people, killed 5, wounded 50 as they march on the border. Now, Turkey has called for a Muslim army to attack and destroy Israel. And Erdogan, that's his great vision, is to retake Israel. And they see that the moving of the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem as an act of war. And one good thing in the omnibus bill is a defunding of Palestine, which the Hamas calls an act of war. Which I find it hilarious. You ain't gonna give us any
money anymore? We're going to war. That rhymed.
So, yeah, some Gazans estimated the total number of protesters in the tens of thousands, including women and children. They gathered at multiple sites throughout the blockaded territory, which is flanked by Israel along its eastern and northern borders. The Palestinian Red Crescent reported 201 people wounded from live fire. They did drop tear gas. 17,000 Palestinians are rioting in 5 locations along the Gaza Strip, a security fence. The rioters are rolling burning tires and hurling firebombs and rocks at the security fence and at Israeli troops who are responding with riot dispersal means and firing towards the main instigators, Palestinian fighters from the Fatah movement march in Kazakhstan assault rifles. That's a picture. Here is protesters. One is holding his Palestinian flag, standing in front of Israeli soldiers. Here they are again. A picture taken on March 30th, 2018 from the southern Israeli kibbutz. More people, Palestinian youth, use a cell phone to take a selfie. Earlier in the day before the main protest began, a Palestinian farmer was killed by Israeli tank fire near the border. The Israeli military said the tank fire came after 2 suspects approached the security fence and began operating suspiciously. The organizers said the 6-week protest will run until the inauguration of the new U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, May 14th. The upcoming embassy move has added to tensions surrounding the march. Israel announced a closed military zone in the area surrounding the Gaza Strip. So, you know, the Palestinians have no thought for women and children, by the way. They want numbers, so they will put women and children in harm's way. You just have to look at their suicide bombers. They strap bombs on children. They strap bombs on teenagers and say, go blow yourself up. And I have very little sympathy, unfortunately, for Gaza, the Gaza Strip, and for Palestinians. At least 14 Gazans killed. I guess the number's just gone up since this article. Over 1,000 wounded in Hamas and disputed border. So I guess this is an updated article. At least 8 Palestinians were killed. We don't know the number is. 1,100 were wounded by Israeli tear gas, rubber bullets, and live fire in the Gaza Strip on Friday. Some put the death tolls 10 to 12. So you can
draw your own conclusions.
You know, I banned our pro-Palestinian people, and suddenly our reach on Facebook dropped by a quarter. So Facebook is definitely pro-Palestine, anti-Israel. And
it's very interesting to me that when I was a kid, to be anti-Semitic was a really bad thing. I mean, it was the exact same thing as being racist. You just didn't do it. It's not done. Right. Okay. Nowadays, it's very fashionable to be anti-Semitic, to hate Israel. They are not without fault. The United States is not without fault.
Right.
But Palestine and the Palestinians and the Islamic State therein are most assuredly not without fault.
Right.
And so you have to look at this situation and see that there are bad guys within it all. But I'm going to be completely honest with you. There are no good guys on the Palestinian side. There, I said it. But there are good guys on the Israeli side. There's bad guys there. Sure. There's bad guys in the United States.
Right.
Sure. There's good guys in the United States. There's good guys in Israel. There are no good guys in Palestine.
Right.
So that's my gauge. That's what I'm going to give you guys. You can chew on that and hash it out amongst yourselves.
There you go. I did fix Jasper. She couldn't get up off the couch. All right. So, what's next? So much news. All right. David Hogg.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Listen, I'm not going to put his name in the title because I got to tell you, this young man is now the poster child for George Soros and the deep state.
Yep.
And if you question him in any way, they will destroy you. They are banning people off of Facebook. They're taking people off of YouTube. You can't question this guy because it's not about David Hogg. He's their mouthpiece. They're feeding him all kinds of craziness. So Laura Ingraham said, why are you crying and whining about not getting into college? And she tweeted this thing out. Well, as a response, he listed the 12 advertisers on the Laura Ingraham show and said, okay, now let's boycott.
No.
And companies are pulling out. And then she apologized, and he came back and said, apology is not good enough. And then his sister comes out. I mean, they have, like, knives. I don't know. These...
I'm actually...
The devil is involved in this.
Really disappointed in Laura Ingraham that she apologized. However... Laura Ingraham is not her own person. Anytime that you decide to listen, you make music, you sign up to a record company, they own you. You have a news program, they own you. The same thing happened with Sean Hannity. These people can say what they want to say as long as it is approved.
The difference is
by
that,
higher ups.
The difference is that Sean Hannity is bigger than Laura Ingraham, right? So here's a list. Let's see. They want Nutrish, TripAdvisor, Waywear Incorporated, Hulu, Nestle, Expedia, Joss A. Bank, and Johnson & Johnson. That's 8 that the 17-year-old wants pulled ads from. And
he's not 17, by the way. He is 18.
Let me see what Ben
The big story over the last 24 hours has been that many advertisers have now dropped Laura Ingram's show on Fox News. And the reason they dropped Laura Ingram's show is because she tweeted something out yesterday, which we discussed, in which she suggested, I'm going to quote her directly, she said, David Hogg rejected by 4 colleges to which he applied and whines about it. And we played the clip of David Hogg, who's the Parkland shooting survivor, who's obviously made a name for himself saying pretty vicious things on television about Second Amendment advocates, Dana Lash, GOPers. He's been pretty brutal to everyone who disagrees with him. And he's wanted to have it both ways, David Hogg. And again, this is not a criticism of his right to speak. Obviously, he has the right to speak.
No, but he is a big
story.
crybaby. If you can't dish it out, or I mean, if
Right.
you can't take it, don't dish it out.
Well, he's literally called all the NRA members at fault for the whole shooting.
Now, Chris Holman's saying they actually dropped her show. I did not hear that.
I didn't hear it. She was on last night. So,
No, I don't think they dropped her show. I think she probably is still there. I think they're just going to try to figure it out. But here's the thing that bothers me about this. And, well, one of them. David
Liberty
Hogg has
Mutual,
done this a couple of times
Office Depot, right.
about getting these advertisers to pull from the NRA and things
Right.
like that. David Hogg is pretending to be a journalist.
Yeah.
David Hogg does not know how to find out all of the advertisers of the Laura Ingraham show in which to put that out on Twitter. He is being fed lines, just
Right.
like the videos that we saw come out early on, where he is repeating his lines. He does not have a single solitary thought of his own. And I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't even typing the words on his Twitter account. If
Yeah.
somebody else just controlled that Twitter account so that it goes out exactly the way that the machine wants it to come out.
Yeah, so it's, you know, this is a hard battle. I don't think that we've ever had the opportunity to battle like this before, and this what it is. I mean, seriously, Sean Hannity's back. His show was gone. Sean Hannity is back, and you know, there are certain sacred cows that the left says you can't touch.
Right.
And Seth Rich was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do you know when our channel was first, our Resistance Chicks channel was actually censored, pulled down. We got it back within a day, thanks to all of our Bernie supporters.
Yeah.
We had a lot of support then. I don't know that we would have the same thing if we got shut down now because we don't have as many Bernie supporters.
Right.
But it was because of the video that we had done on Seth Rich.
right.
That had them shut us down. So this is, again, like you just said, one of the sacred cows. You don't mess with it. You don't touch it, because if you do, they are going to shut you down. On our Facebook Live platform here, Harold says she didn't need to apologize to that kid. Then Brian Renfro says, Harold, that is the problem. Apology tours. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Backpedaling makes you weak. Brian then says, I think it's shameful Laura Ingraham apologized. And again, she's owned by the program.
If you want to get your voice out there, Patriot Gallery, she's going to bring her little sock muppet thanks to Tracy here.
Bring it in closer. Wait, bring it in closer.
I need my...
Step in. No, they're not going to see you. Step in closer. There we go. You need your microphone?
I need a microphone.
Okay.
This is
It's awesome.
By the way, this is our mom. She's like to be on
Oh, there you go.
camera.
Make sure they can see
So
your eyes.
Tracy
There you go.
literally made her a
Tracy
puppet.
that made the Leah and Michelle dolls. Here.
Don't look at them. Look at me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Don't look at.
I'm a ham. I'm a Mike ham. I'm everything ham. I like ham. Bacon, 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 bacon. But I just came to correct that we say the religion that cannot be named,
Right.
and the young man who cannot be named.
The young man who
The
cannot
young man
be.
who cannot be named.
We don't want to name them anyways. But you were looking for strikes already.
Sorry.
Boom. We can't live with this. So if you can't find us here, we'll finish the show and we'll be on BitChute. Bye.
That's true. BitChute is not censoring people. So if you can't find us on YouTube and you can't find us on Facebook, then find us on BitChute for sure.
And I am still working on the website. That's like a working term, but literally I already own resistancechicks.com. We have it. So that's where we will be. That's the website that I am in the process of working on. So
How about some good news for a second before we get back into the deep news?
dang, I love my mother.
Here is President Trump's Happy Easter.
My fellow Americans, at this holy time of the year, families across our nation gather in homes, churches, and synagogues to light candles and to praise God. During the sacred holiday of Passover, Jewish families around the world give thanks to God for liberating the Jewish people from bondage in Egypt and delivering them to the promised land of Israel. For Christians, we remember the suffering and death of God's only Son and his glorious resurrection on the third day. On Easter Sunday, we proclaim with joy, Christ is risen. Both of these sacred celebrations remind us that God's love redeems the world.
Wow.
Almost 3,000 years ago, the prophet Isaiah wrote, "Darkness covers the earth, but the Lord rises upon you, and his glory appears over you. For the Lord will be your everlasting light." In America, we look to the light of God to guide our steps. We trust in the power of the Almighty for wisdom and strength. And we praise our Heavenly Father for the blessings of freedom and the gift of eternal life. Happy Passover, happy Easter. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
So we can thank Gary.
Gary got us the diamond and silk bling, and so we promised that every time we brought Trump, we would wear the bling. Okay, so there's Trump and there's the bling.
Literally from Diamond and Silk.
Yeah, that's...
Did you guys just hear that speech?
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time a president was quoting the prophet Isaiah.
Yeah.
It's really powerful. Really, Jesus and his redemptive power. It saves
Can you imagine
the
Obama
world.
saying that?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people, omnibus, backing out, Trump, I don't know, whatever. Muslims have this thing. Taqiyya.
The religion that shall not be named.
Excuse me, the religion that shall not be named. That means they're allowed to lie. They could be holding positions, whatever. Trump is not a part of the religion that shall not be named. I know that, at least that much, unequivocally. So you cannot speak of the redemptive power of Jesus Christ in the Oval Office like that.
Without being struck by lightning.
Well, yeah. And so I really want you guys to know that we are still on the winning side. When Trump was elected, and I say this again, not because he was elected, just when God moved into the White House.
Yes.
The anointing is there. I want you guys to be excited. Stop looking at how things look in certain instances and just be excited about the fact that God is in the White House and the name of Jesus Christ can be broadcast. And it's not just during an Easter speech or a Passover speech that Trump does this. He does it in all of his speeches. Okay, we have had a member of the religion that shall not be named in the White House for the past 8 years. So this is huge.
A regular reporter on InfoWars, Ted Malek, he was detained by the FBI. He had his phone confiscated, and he's getting ready to publish a book called The Plot to Destroy Trump, How the Deep State Fabricated the Russian Dossier to Subvert the President.
Wow.
And
they can't see your Trump pin because you're here.
Oh, well, it's okay. It's going to get stuck on it, too.
It's not on.
It's kind of there. I'm going to go into this whole Russian hysteria that's happening, even like, it's like Russian hysteria 2.0.
It's so bad.
And this whole Salisbury poisoning incident, we're going to kind of delve into that pretty deep because it's causing a brink of World War III. Ted Malek, an author, intellectual, and political consultant, was detained by the FBI shortly after his plane arrived at Logan Field on Tuesday. According to conservative Jerome Corsi, Malek was reportedly detained for making false statements. He was in the U.S. to give a talk and to come home for Easter. And Corsi reported on Thursday that Mueller and his minions were behind Malek's detainment. So I don't know exactly what's going on here, but I do know that he is coming out with this book. It's going to really shed some light on the deep state. He says, after exiting the plane, I was escorted to a special line for passport control. There I was formally detained and asked to wait, along with his wife, who's traveling with him. They would not say why. And he found most curious, as he's a frequent flyer and he goes back and forth to the U.S. and Europe, all the time, and he's never had such treatment. After about 20 minutes left waiting, he was taken by a TSA official and an FBI agent to a separate hall where they thoroughly checked his suitcase and asked about any electronic devices, phones, and computers. I now know that when you're traveling on an airplane, make sure your phone has a lock number on it, because technically they can't make you unlock it. They have to have a warrant and everything like that. So that was one thing that Lauren Southern, they kept telling her that they were going to do this or that or this or that, or that she didn't unlock her phone. But she didn't unlock her phone. So put a lock on your phone, put a password on your phone if you're traveling.
Fascinating.
If you're traveling by air anywhere. So he was escorted to another building into a secure conference room where two young FBI agents introduced themselves. They said he was being detained to answer questions regarding the Department of Justice Special Counsel probe, and showed him their identification. They seemed to know everything about him and had a color photograph and personal details, and said in intimidating ways that it was a felony to lie to the FBI. I stated that I realized that, and I would readily, in fact gladly, cooperate with them. He did, however, find it objectionable to treat him in the way they was treated as he was entering his home country, where he is a citizen and has served at the highest levels of government. They did not need to use such tactics of intimidation.
Wow.
They asked for his cell phone and any laptop, and produced a document to seize and perform forensics on it. He gladly signed permission and asked if at least I could keep my driver's license and credit cards. They said yes and gave him back. So I guess they interrogated him. It says an hour to interrogate him, involved himself in various disarming chit-chat about his career, academic credentials, top secret code word, government clearances in earlier area, and being a fan of the Philadelphia Eagles. All as well as good. Why me? The questions got more detailed about his involvement in the Trump campaign, which was informal and unpaid, whom I communicated with, whom I knew, and how well they had a long list of names. They seemed to then focus more attention on Roger Stone, Andrew Corsi, who is Roger Stone's been kicked off Twitter. Jerome Corsi was shut down and back up on YouTube. And so it said then they served him with a subpoena, which I noticed had only been issued that very day in Boston to appear before the Muir grand jury today.
Wow.
So they said I could do the telephone and lead attorney on that team and make necessary arrangements. So this whole thing is just so absolutely insane and weird. And
I want to tell you what my first thought is. We don't hear very often, and I'm sure it happens, but we don't hear about it. People being detained, entering into the United States. Most recently, I don't know what you have playing there. There it is. Most recently, we're thinking about the detainees in the UK. So here's my thought process on this. The FBI and the CIA are unequivocally what we refer to as deep state. The deep state is unequivocally tied with the likes of George Soros, globalists, and such. The people that detained Lauren Southern and Martin Sellner and what's her name?
Brittany
Pettibone. Again, they're all linked to the same cronies, the same crooks, and that's why they're using the same tactics, and that's why they're becoming more and more bold-faced about doing things like this. My point is, expect to see more, much, much more in your country, wherever you are, here in the United States. It's not just the UK. Here we are getting upset at the UK. I can't believe they're detaining these people. I can't believe they're not letting them into their country. This guy is an American citizen.
Right. So before I go to this McCabe interview on the dossier with Representatives Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan, who are fed up, Jeff Sessions has said he's just going to appoint some attorney from within the office to investigate the FBI's misdealings, which Jim Jordan will tell you that that's retarded to have an underling investigate his boss, which Rod Rosenstein is his boss. You have to have a second special counsel. So before I get my blood pressure up on that, we hit that. I spent this morning researching what went down in the UK and this whole poison thing, because we expelled on the 26th 60 Russian diplomats.
Big deal.
Worldwide, they're expelling Russian diplomats. Russia shut down the U.S. consulate and expelled all the U.S. diplomats. The Russian ambassador said he hasn't even seen it this bad during the Cold War when we did have diplomats in both countries.
You're not feeling it because you're still driving to Starbucks and getting your coffee. But when it comes to this omnibus bill, the word on the street is that the reason that Trump gave in to all of these things was so that he could get his military funding, so that he would have generals on his side, that he would have all of these people on his side, and also that he would have the funding needed, if necessary, to go to war. This is very disturbing to me.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I want to break a little bit of this down because...
break it down, Leah.
You guys might not know, but this it's called the Skripal case, and it's this ex-Russian spy. What happened? What's going down? I want to just run through these questions in this blog, and he wrote 30 questions the journalist should be asking about the Skripal case, and they kind of sum up in his new article, so I don't need to go back to that one. But despite the fact that there are legitimate questions that have not been answered, and many important facts surrounding the case are still unknown, the case has given rise to a serious international crisis with the extraordinary expulsion of Russian diplomats across many U.S. She can just stay there.
She can sit there. That's my
She's just kind of step. Michelle, you can straddle the dog. She's fine. She's happy right there.
Tell them why we're having this issue.
We have two wonderful brown
Chocolate
labs with us. And so
Sydney.
we have a little bit less space in the house than we normally do.
Right, she's literally sitting right between my legs.
You're good. Okay, the diplomats expelled from the U.S. on the 26th. This is a moment to stop and pause for a second. Now, I'm going to give you a punchline here. Skripal is tied to Christopher Steele, the author of the Trump dossier. So I'm going to tell you the punchline. And he goes through a lot of scenarios and what all this could mean. I'm going to tell you what I believe is the case. Hillary and the deep state wanted war with Russia. We heard in the debates with Trump, she wanted Russia to know our nuclear response time. They were setting Russia up to go to war with Russia because God knows why. War means money. I don't know why exactly. But I do know that they have been pushing this Russian narrative. It was set up to go to war with Russia. Russia did not hack the DNC. Seth Rich gave that information out. It's a fact.
So Eric says, I have been waiting for this topic to come up and for you to explain it, Leah. I want to add something when you said I don't know why war means money. The dollar bill is on the brink, and when I say the brink, I mean the hair's breadth distance brink of collapse. And anytime we come this close to collapse and things like that, the only thing, the very last hope
is war.
Right. They have to have a war. Let me explain something to you guys. And I know a lot of people. Let me explain something to you, Lucy. I know a lot of you guys don't want war. I don't want war either. I would rather have the dollar bill collapse. Absolutely. If this war doesn't happen, the dollar bill will collapse. You will have economic chaos worldwide. And so that's why they're doing it. That is the answer. That is the answer to why. Because these globalists need their dollar bill. If the dollar bill collapses, they lose everything. And they built this house of cards, and their house of cards is about to collapse with a hair's breadth. Just literally, it is about to blow over. So war is inevitable, and they're going to get war, and they're going to give war, and they're going to throw war, and they're going to do all this stuff. And it still isn't going to work. So good news on the horizon. War's coming, and economic collapse after that fails. You excited yet? I am.
But it doesn't have to end that way. Trump's into business. He's a businessman. He does street fighting, but he really doesn't like war. He's very common sense kind of guy. But he's like anything to make money, but not with war. See, so I think that we have a bill already. Did you know that? About to put gold standard back.
Yeah.
As House Bill something 22.
Yeah, there is another option.
To make the gold and gold back money. I don't believe in gold back money. I believe in the real thing. But was it Venezuela in February put their money on gold, and Japan or China just put their
Russia are.
money on gold.
Because they're smart.
Venezuela, I don't think.
And so America has to follow suit and put their money on gold. And it strengthens your dollar bill. So you don't really have to lose the dollar bill. So he's trying to avoid the economic collapse. But also I heard that, like, he kicked Russia out and everything. It's for civil war. You look at the young man who shall not be named. And other things going on. These people want war.
They do.
You know, you've seen the Kingdom of Heaven, that movie, and said...
It's a really good movie, by the way. It's called The Kingdom of Heaven with Orlando Bloom.
Yeah, and the one guy, what was his name, York or something? He said, give me a war. And so there's people out there saying, give me a war. They want war. They love it. Because they want half of us dead, right?
That too. War really helps with depopulation. Things like that. Helps with the controlling of the people, you know.
All right, so let me go over a couple of these.
Leah just
Are
muted
you ready, Mom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, so you had this Russian diplomat. Him and his daughter were poisoned in the city of Salzburg on March 4th. Yet, despite the fact that investigators did not yet appear to know how they were poisoned, when they were poisoned, or where they were poisoned. They don't know where, they don't know when, and they don't know how. A number of Western nations have used the intent as a pretext for the coordinated expulsion of diplomats on a scale not witnessed since the Cold War. This is very abnormal and very dangerous. In the previous article, it's not his intention to bring forth any conspiracy theory. We're just going to bring forth some facts. All right? So, have the police yet identified any suspects? You can't just say Putin's government. Okay? You have to say when, where, how, and who.
Right.
Right? You can't start a war if you don't know who did the thing, right?
Who did the thing?
If so, is there any evidence connecting this person, whoever did this, to the Russian government? You can open that door if they want to walk out there. If not, how is it possible to determine culpability as the British government has done? Theresa May is deep state. Okay? She is a pawn of the global government. In her statement to the House of Commons on the 12th of March, just barely a week after this whole thing went down, she said, "It is now clear that Mr. Skripal and his daughter were poisoned with a military-grade nerve agent of a type developed by Russia. This is part of a nerve agent known as the Novichok, based on the positive identification of the chemical agent by world-leading experts at the Defense Science and Technology Laboratory at Porton Down." In the judgment at the High Court on the 22nd of March onto whether to allow blood samples to be taken from Sergei and Yulia Skripal for examination by the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, the OPCW, the worldwide organization, evidence submitted by Porton Down, the place where they took the chemical to be and analyzed, which was just minutes away from this Salisbury Institute, by the way.
Conveniently.
Said the blood samples from Sergei and Yulia were analyzed, and the findings indicated exposure to a nerve agent. Get this.
I'm getting it.
Or a related compound. The samples tested positive for the presence of Novichok class nerve agent or a closely related agent. They could not pin it down as to the reality of what went down. Now, get this. So the Prime Minister said that Porton Down had positively identified it as a Novichok nerve agent, but Porton Down came and said it was actually the Novichok agent or a closely related agent. These are two statements, but they don't say the same thing. Why were the phrases related compound and closely related agent added to the statement given by Porton Down? And is this an indication that scientists weren't 100% that it was a Novichok whatever agent?
It's a really good question.
Why were these phrases left out of Theresa May's speech in the House of Commons? Why did the Prime Minister choose the word Novichok in her speech rather than the word foliant, which is the actual name of the program initiated by the Soviet Union when attempting to develop a new class of chemical weapons in the 70s and 80s. When asked in an interview with the Deutsche Welle why scientists at Portendown had found out so quickly that the nerve agent was a Novichok class of chemical weapons, the Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson was asked whether Portendown possesses a sample of it, and he said they do. And they are absolutely categorical. And I asked the guy myself, are you sure? And he said, there's no doubt. So Russia is the only one in possession of this chemical weapon, but it's right down the street at Portendown. And they did not, Portendown and the British government did not report to this organization of chemical weapons or whatever that they had this chemical weapon sitting in a lab somewhere,
but it could
under
not
their
have
power.
gotten out and administered right down the street.
It could not have gotten out because the Russians could have gotten out of control from the Russians, but it could never get out of control from the British.
Because why would they do that?
If
Start a
Mr.
war,
Johnson's
maybe?
statement is correct, and the Defense and Science Technology Laboratory at Portendown has samples of the Novichok in its possession, where did it come from?
That's a good question.
Were they produced at Portendown? How long have they had them? And why has the DSTL not registered the possession of these substances with the OPCW, which it is legally obliged to do so under the Chemical Weapons Convention? Does this admission by Mr. Johnson not indicate that Novichoks can be made in advanced chemical weapons facilities, as indeed were under the auspices of the OPCW in Iran? Iran knowingly told this OPCW that they were creating these Novichok type substances. Legally, we're allowed to do it. Iran is in possession of this same substance. Okay? Now I'm going to get to something that's even creepier. If so, how can the government be sure that the substance used to poison Mr. Skripal and his daughter was made in or produced by Russia? So they said that there's a chemical weapon that was closely resembles this. So in my humble opinion,
Hear it?
it
Drop the bomb.
is a synthetic aftermarket. What do you call those non-name brand drugs? Can I get the non-name brand drug? You go and get the what?
It's on the tip of my tongue. Now you messed me up.
Well, you know what I mean.
They're going to hit it in the second once, the 30th
All right.
leg.
So here's the thing.
Generic.
Generic, yeah. In her statement to the House of Commons on Wednesday, March 14th, Theresa May said there are only two possible explanations for the poisoning of Mr. Skripal and his daughter. Either it was a direct act by the Russian state against her country, or conceivably the Russian government could have lost control of the military nerve agent. Why are there only two possible scenarios here? There's way more than two possible scenarios.
I agree.
On the 26th of March, a number of countries expelled Russian diplomats in an apparent response to the incident in Salisbury. Yet at this time, the OPCW had not yet investigated the case or analyzed the blood samples. Why was the clearly coordinated decision to expel diplomats taken before the OPCW's investigation had concluded? Has this not put huge pressure on the OPCW to come up with the right conclusion? It is reckoned that the OPCW's investigation into the substance used will take at least 3 weeks to complete, whereas Portendown was able to do it in less than a week. Why would it take the OPCW 3 weeks and Portendown to say, bam, it's Russia, it's Novichok, we're done. 1 week, less than a week?
Because they already had it, for one.
Will the OPCW be using the samples of Novichok that Boris Johnson said were held at Portendown to compare the blood samples of Mr. Skripal and his daughter? If not, on what basis will this comparison be made, since the first known synthesis of Novichok was made in Iran in 2016? So there is a synthetic version of this. If the OPCW discovers that the substance is indeed a Novichok, will this be sufficient evidence with which to establish who carried out the attack on the Skripals? Or, given that other countries clearly have the capability to produce such substances, would more evidence be needed?
Unfortunately, I fear that regardless of the truth that is uncovered, it won't matter. They have already put it forth publicly that it is Russia
Right.
that did it. That is their effort to get the public behind them. That's the effort to get their politicians behind them, and that's all they need. That's enough. It doesn't matter if it comes back later. It's like being in a courtroom and you say strike that from the record. The lawyer knows as soon as they have uttered the words, whether it's told that they should strike it from the record, they have already put that thought into the jury's mind. That's exactly what they have done here. Geo on here says it's a plot to kill Brexit. Yeah, you're right. It is a plot to kill Brexit.
Because then they're telling people, we have to stay in the EU, and look, Russia could attack us at any moment.
But it's so much more than that. It's not just a plot to kill Brexit. It is a plot to pull the entire world into war with Russia.
All right, so I want to give you a few more keys to this that's going to unlock your mind. In a letter to the Times, Stephen Davis, consultant in emergency medicine at the Salisbury NHS Foundation and Trust, wrote the following. Sir, further to your report, poison exposure leaves almost 40 needing treatment, March 14th. May I clarify that no patients have experienced nerve agent poisoning in Salisbury, and there have only ever been 3 patients with significant poisoning. So they're reporting that 4 people were poisoned with this, but the medical consultant at the Salisbury NHS said that there were no people in need of treatment for nerve poisoning. His claim that no patients have ever experienced nerve agent poisoning in Salisbury is remarkably odd, as it appears to flatly contradict the official narrative. Was this a slip of the pen? It has been said that Scripples and Detective Sergeant Nick Bailey were poisoned by a military-grade nerve agent. According to some claims, the type referred could be anywhere between 5 and 8 times more toxic than the VX nerve agent. Given that just 10 milligrams of VX is reckoned to be the median lethal dose, it seems likely that the particular type mentioned in the Scripple case should have killed them instantly, but they weren't killed instantly. Is there an explanation as to how or why this did not happen? He says, although reports suggested the involvement of some sort of nerve agent fairly soon after the incident, it was almost a week before the Public Health of England issued advice to those who had visited the Mill Pub or the ZZ restaurant in Salisbury on the day that the Scrippleys fell ill.
Britt Baza says it's pronounced Salisbury.
Salisbury, thank you, Salisbury. Why the delay, and did this pose a danger to the public? In their advice, get this, the Public Health of England stated that people who had visited those places where traces of military-grade nerve agent had apparently been found should wash their clothes and wipe personal items such as phone, handbags, and other electronic items with cleansing or baby wipes and dispose of the wipes in the trash. Are baby wipes acknowledged to be an effective and safe method for dealing with objects that may potentially have been contaminated with a military-grade nerve agent, especially one of a type 5 to 8 times more deadly than VX?
That's a really good question, Leah.
Just wipe them down
with some baby wipes and then just throw it in the trash. Don't have it put in like a hazard. You go to the daggum hospital here and you wipe somebody's butt, you know, a nurse, and you got to put it in that like a hazardous waste.
Right.
I mean, this is ridiculous. Hang on, I want to get to a couple of the comments here because the chat is really alive. A lot of people are into this. Jim West says that the daughter is eating and drinking, so the truth might be close, meaning we might be able to get a little bit from her. However, I don't know how much she's going to be able to reveal about who did it or why they did it. Worth a Look said the same thing they did with Iraq and others. They brainwashed the public into believing the story for going to war. But the people here in the UK didn't want Iraq and Libya, etc., but it still happens. So
that's really good. If you guys have any more updates on where they are at, I don't have those updates, so go and leave them in the comments on where they are at physically right now. But get this, the detective that they said, Bailey, that said came ill under this after coming into contact with the substance after attempting the Scripples on the bench they were seated on in the Maltings in Salisbury. Subsequent claims, however, first aired by the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, said that he came into contact with the substance at Sergei Scripple's house in Christie Miller Road. Reports since have been highly ambiguous as to what should be a verifiable fact. Where were you and where did you pick up this agent?
Right.
Right? So there, now get this, the former ambassador to Uzbekistan, Craig Murray, has claimed that sources within the Foreign and Commonwealth Office have told him that scientists at Porton Down would not agree to a statement about the place of origin of the substance because they weren't able to establish it. All right.
But the Russians.
I want to get to this is really big, and all right. Let's see. All right, so
Jim West makes a good point here. He says Russia has to have a bone to pick. Financially and militarily, they aren't a big power anymore. They have less GDP than Texas, I believe. Russia is in a weakened state, which is why Putin is trying to bolster his people. He's trying to make them healthy.
Which is why it's easy to make them the fall guy. Why isn't China the enemy? Because China could take us out.
Exactly. It's much easier to go to war with Russia because they wouldn't win.
All right, so on the Andrew Marr show on the 18th of March, Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson said the following. I might just say in response to Mr. Chisolf's point about Russia's stockpiles of chemical weapons, we actually had evidence within the last 10 years that Russia has not only been investigating the delivery of nerve agents for the purposes of assassination, it has been creating and stockpiling Novichok. Now, where has this intelligence come from, and has it been properly verified? If this intelligence was known before September 27, 2017, the date that the OPCW issued a statement declaring the completion of the destruction of 39,967 metric tons of chemical weapons possessed by the Russian Federation, why did Britain not inform the OPCW of its own intelligence, which apparently contradicts this claim, which they would have had a legal obligation to do so? So you're saying we sat on this knowledge, we knew they had this, we knew they were going to use this, but we didn't tell the OPCW. Now you are putting yourself in a bind of looking like a liar. All right? So, also on the Andrew Marr show, Boris Johnson made the following claim after a question of whether he was absolutely sure, and we told you about that. Obviously, it is our best of our knowledge that this is a Russian-made nerve agent and falls within the category of Novichok made only by Russia. And just to get back to the point about the international reaction, which is so fascinating, in the phrase, to the best of our knowledge, is that an adequate response to Mr. Marr's request of, are you absolutely sure? I want to get to this because it's really important to know that who went in. All right. Let's see. Is the British government aware that the main plant involved in attempts to synthesize Novichoks in the 70s and 80s was based not in Russia, but in Nukus in Uzbekistan? Does the fact that the U.S. Department of Defense decontaminated and dismantled the Nukus site under the agreement with the government of Uzbekistan make it at least theoretically possible that the substances or secrets held within that plant could have been carried out of the country and even back to the United States? The connection between Sergei Skripal's MI6 recruiter Pablo Miller, who also happens to live in Salisbury, and Christopher Steele, the author of the so-called Trump dossier, has been well established, as had the fact that Mr. Skripal and Mr. Miller regularly met together in the city. Is this connection of any interest in the investigation? All right, so could it be possible that when the United States was in Uzbekistan, in the country of Nukus, where the plant is, or whatever it is, how they make this, it comes from Nukus in Uzbekistan, right? And our government went in there and decontaminated it. Isn't it at least theoretically possible? The guy who started it, I think this is, I might have missed this, but the guy who created this defected to the United States in the 80s. So we have a guy here who created it. Oh my God. And he's living here in the United States. But don't worry.
It's okay.
He won't do it.
No.
Do you know how this whole atomic bomb thing, nuclear bomb works? We brought over here a bunch of really smart Jewish German people, right? German Jews. And they created the nuclear weapon. Mm-hmm. Our government is well known to take people who are really smart, creating really bad weapons, and bring them into our country and then create those same weapons here.
Yeah.
Here. The deep state is fully capable of using this nerve agent on these two people. Mm-hmm. And creating a whole international stir. Because in my opinion, Putin and Russia have made a turn towards Jesus Christ and a turn to Christianity. And the deep state and the commies are upset about it, and they want to bring Russia down. Because they don't want them to turn Christian. They don't want them to turn into a republic. They don't want them to be healthy. I mean, Putin is now giving away land so you can farm. They're encouraging organic farming. Everything that Russia was under communism has been destroyed or is being destroyed.
There are Russians that have been gone from Russia for years, for a couple of decades.
Yeah, who are going back.
They're going back to Russia.
Americans are starting businesses and farms in Russia.
Right.
So I wanted to bring that up, and I also want to give you a taste of the Russian ambassador says that he can't remember a period when the relations between Washington and Moscow were worse. And so I want to play a few pieces of what he has to say here.
Let's hear it.
Moved yesterday to expel dozens of U.S. diplomats.
If anybody slap your cheek, your face, what will be a reaction from your side? You will think, not you will think, you will try to do, and you will retaliate. It goes without saying.
The expulsions follow an international outcry after an early March attack on a former Russian double agent, Sergei Skripal, and his daughter, who live in England. It left them both in critical condition. British officials say the Russians used a deadly nerve agent in the attack. You say there's no evidence of Russian involvement.
Yeah.
Do you agree or acknowledge that it was a Soviet-era nerve agent used in this attack?
You say that, frankly, I don't know. You said that what we offered and what we have requested from our British colleagues, just only to give us evidence, to give us proofs regarding the potential involvement or so-called involvement of Russian side into this accident.
Would you acknowledge that Russia has the motive to go after this former spy?
It's a very interesting question. You see that. Let's again look at the history. That guy, he was an ex-spy.
Yes.
Yes. He spent 5 years in a Russian jail. Then he spent 5 years in London. Please, there is just only a question. Do we have motive to kill him on the eve of a Russian presidential election?
Do you?
Of course, no. Where is motive? You see that?
As you know, Russia has continued to deny any interference in our 2016 presidential election. You've said, show us the proof. And now the special prosecutor, Robert Mueller, has...
12 guys, blah, 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 blah. All right,
no proof.
All right. I'm just going to jump right in here to this interview with Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows and why it's important, because it goes into the whole Steele dossier, the whole Trump-Russia collusion. This is a big, giant, I mean, there's a tangled web that they have woven, and it will come crashing down. But they are so entrenched into the deep state. I just want them to start out and let them start talking here.
Clinton probes. In a letter to 3 Republican congressional leaders, Sessions noted that special counsels are only appointed in extraordinary circumstances, and that instead he's assigned U.S. Attorney John Huber in Utah to conduct a review of the FBI's most high-profile cases. But first, an Ingraham exclusive. Earlier this month, Jeff Sessions fired Deputy Director Andrew McCabe of the FBI just days before his official retirement, citing an IG report that concluded Mr. McCabe lied under oath and made unauthorized leaks to the press. The public still hasn't seen that report, but joining me now are 2 men whose offices have a copy of the Inspector General's findings. Let's bring in from Columbus, Ohio, Republican Congressman Jim Jordan, and with me here in studio is North Carolina Congressman Mark Meadows, also Republican. So let's start with you, Congressman Jordan. What's the headline that's going to come out of this Inspector General report?
Well, we don't know what will come out of that, but we do know about Andrew McCabe that he didn't lie just once, he lied 4 times. So 4 times he lied to James Comey, he lied to the Office of Professional Responsibility, and he lied twice under oath to the Inspector General. And remember, this is Andrew McCabe, Deputy Director of the FBI. This is Andrew McCabe. The text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page talk about Andy's office, the meeting where they talk about the insurance policy in case Donald Trump is actually President of the United States. So that's why this is significant. And again, it wasn't once, it wasn't twice, wasn't even 3 times. 4 times he lied about leaking information to the Wall Street Journal about the FBI.
Congressman Meadows, he was adamant in his op-ed that his career, speaks for itself, that he was authorized to speak as he did to the press, and yet you guys are saying he's lied 4 times.
Well, I think it's not our words. It's actually the independent investigation that was done by his colleagues. And so when you read it, it's not about politics. You broke the news. Actually, you broke the news right here just a little over a week ago now. And what we're finding is everybody's saying, well, this is political in nature, but when you read the report, you see that it's not political because under oath and certainly with the investigation, it was a real problem. But here's why it's critical. Here's why it's critical. The Attorney General Sessions just talked about extraordinary circumstances. Well, how much more extraordinary do you have to be when you fire the central player in the investigation? That's one critical component. And so we need to have this special counsel. I disagree with the Attorney General, and I can tell you tonight, I went through and reviewed some redacted things that were given to our committee. And on 7 pages, there were 12 material facts, not just names, material facts that were omitted by the Department of Justice. It's time that they come clean and give Congress what we need.
12
material facts. What I'm talking about is, the news broke about the meeting that happened with Dennis McDonough in the White House.
The former White House Chief of Staff for Barack Obama.
That was redacted, but it didn't stop there. When we look at the multiple redactions that are taking place, this Department of Justice is not complying with the subpoena and with the oversight responsibility that we have in Congress. And so for the Attorney General to suggest that there's not enough there is just extremely disappointing.
Congressman Jordan, it sounds like your colleague, Congressman Meadows, is saying that, there was a reason to redact certain information, because whether it was a reference to friendship with Judge Contreras, or perhaps information related to McDonough, it doesn't make them look good. And it's redacted.
They've been trying to hide information from us. We have to go over to the Justice Department, go in the room and have our staff look at this information, come back out and tell us. It's ridiculous. But Mark is exactly right. When the Attorney General writes Congress and says, only under extraordinary circumstances do we appoint a second special counsel. Well, how about these facts, Laura? James Comey's been fired. Deputy Director Andrew McCabe has been fired. Jim Baker, former chief counsel at the FBI, has been demoted and reassigned. Peter Strzok, former deputy head of counterintelligence, has been demoted and reassigned. And Lisa Page, former FBI counsel, has been demoted and reassigned. If those aren't extraordinary circumstances warranting a second special counsel, I don't know what the heck is. So I don't know why the Attorney General keeps postponing this. Everyone in town knows we need a second special counsel to get to the bottom of this. How can Mr. Huber, he's probably a great lawyer, I don't know much about Mr. Huber from Utah, but how can he investigate his boss, Rod Rosenstein? That's who he reports to. Mr. Rosenstein is involved in all this FISA abuse that we think took place. So you have to have a second special counsel. I hope Jeff Sessions figures that out and names one very soon.
This is what one of your chief critics on another network said under questioning. Let's watch.
Was there ever a strong case for appointing a second special counsel?
No, as far as I could tell, most of the accusations against the FBI are lunatic conspiracy theories, just not grounded in anything. And I think the Attorney General did an appropriate thing here.
Congressman Meadows.
Well, when you look at the facts speak for themselves, Laura. When we're looking at, is it a material fact that Peter Strzok had a relationship with a FISA judge and they concealed it? The answer is yes. Is it a fact? And we now know that the investigation into Donald Trump started late July. Within 7 days, there was a meeting with the Department of Justice where they said the White House is leading this. Within 7 days of that.
Everyone has to understand that, because I think a lot of folks miss that. When this happened the other day, that the White House is leading.
Well, that was in that meeting. We've got text messages that would suggest that. And then within 7 days of that, we have a meeting at the White House with the chief of staff of President Obama saying, we can't draw a conclusion, but we can certainly look at the facts. And the facts do speak to further investigation. That's why we believe that.
Or why can't you bring McDonough in for questioning?
Well, I think that would be the appropriate thing to do, but it's not just there. Some of the redactions that the Department of Justice have, they keep the names so we don't even know who to bring in. And so it's important. We've just learned these things recently.
This is from the text, another text that we're talking about tonight, August 8th, 2016, struck to Page. Internal Joint Cyber CD Intel piece for D, that refers to Director Comey.
Right.
Scene setter for McDonough brief.
Right.
Trainer, head of the FBI Cyber Division, directed all cyber info be pulled. I'd let Bill and Jan hammer it out first, though it would be best for Comey to have it before Wednesday White House session.
Yeah, and that Wednesday meeting was August the 10th. We know that. You can go to the White House logs right now and look it up. Jonathan Moffat was there, signed in, did that. So that was on August the 8th of 2016. We know that 2 days later there was a meeting in the White House. So, we're putting the pieces of a puzzle together, but the DOJ are keeping some of the pieces from us.
Congressman Jordan, I want to ask you about a letter that was sent today with Congressman Gowdy and Goodlatte. They seem to heap some praise onto the U.S. attorney who'll be looking into this into these questions. While we continue to believe the appointment of a second special counsel is necessary, this is a step in the right direction. We expect the U.S. Attorney Huber, given his reputation, will conduct an independent and thorough investigation. What reason do you have? I guess he was an Obama appointee, but imagine if an Obama appointee actually concluded that there was perhaps even criminal wrongdoing here. That'd be pretty significant versus an unending special counsel.
No. My guess is John Huber's a great lawyer and is going to do a fine job, but it's not a second special counsel. It's not a special counsel, and John Huber has to report to Rod Rosenstein, who was involved in this.
Who signed the application?
He signed one of the FISA application. Of course he did. So that's the problem, and
that is a problem.
The simple fact remains: these are extraordinary circumstances. Those top 5 people at the FBI, they were involved in. We should never forget this. They're the ones who put this dossier together, dressed it all up like it was legitimate intelligence, took it to the FISA court, and didn't tell the court the whole truth, namely who paid for the dossier and the fact that the FBI had terminated their relationship with Christopher Steele, the author of the dossier, and they didn't disclose that to the court. So those are all key facts. That's why a second special counsel is certainly warranted under these extraordinary circumstances.
For cases this big and this monumental, this consequential, you can't omit material facts. You have to disclose conflicts. Apparent.
So there you have it. If you want to know where we were at with the whole FISA thing, Jeff Sessions is a feet dragger. He only appointed an Obama appointee lawyer to just appease some people and say, I'm doing something. They have something on him. I do not know what it is. I don't know what it is. But I want to switch gears because that stuff is so heavy. Let it get into your being. You chew on that later. Because I want you to see this. This is an invasion. An army of illegal migrants is marching its way through Mexico to the U.S. borders. Over 1,000 people. I guess a guy from BuzzFeed is literally embedded in this group of 1,000 people just on their way to the United States to get into our country illegally, organized into groups and subgroups, just like an army. Here's a video of Mexican authorities.
Oh my gosh. Sorry. Mexican authorities are loud.
Sorry, allowing this group in through Mexico's border. Try to make it small again.
All y'all listening to us with your earbuds.
This is crossing into Mexico from Guatemala, bound for the United States. Beautiful. Immigration agents abandoned their posts as 1,500 people on a refugee caravan, mainly from Honduras, crossed into Mexico from Guatemala yesterday. BuzzFeed has embedded a reporter, Adolfo Flores, with the illegal migrant army, which is being led by the group.
It feels like an army.
Sin Fronteras. The migrants received guidance and training from the Pueblo Sin Fronteras, but reportedly are responsible for their own expenses, food, and water. 5 days now, hundreds of Central Americans, children, women, and men. I love how they put children first, right? Most of them.
Okay, hang on though. At least they have children and women.
Yeah, but still. Most of them from Honduras have boldly crossed immigration checkpoints, military bases, and police in a desperate, sometimes chaotic march toward the United States, despite their being in Mexico without authorization. No one has made any effort to stop them. Organized by a group of volunteers called Pueblos Sin Fronteras, the People Without Borders, the caravan is intended to help migrants safely reach the United States, bypassing not only authorities who would seek to deport them, but gangs and cartels who are known to assault vulnerable migrants.
Their name is Migrants Without Borders.
Yeah.
That's what they're going by.
Yeah. I'm traveling with a
Proudly.
caravan of 1,200, mostly Central Americans, on their way to America. And here's another video. Day 2. On their way to cross in illegally.
And what is so sad is that, again, this is probably not a grassroots movement. This is probably not a bunch of people that decided to get together. This is an organized thing, and these are real people. Some of which, maybe many of which, don't really know what they're getting themselves into, and are being used as pawns in this game. And so it's really sad. So try not to get so angry at these people, because people are like sheep. They are easily led astray. And if you had the opportunity to come to the United States and force your way through, and you're told that this is the way that we should do it, you're told that most Americans want you to do this.
Right. Yeah. So I'm going to move on a little bit to the child that shall not be named. There's another child who can be named, and I love him. He has, oh my gosh, if you are not on Twitter, get on Twitter and follow Kyle Kashuv, Kashuv. He is an amazing voice of reason on Twitter. I do not know how he's so poised. He's actually learning as he goes. So, like, he is doing immense amount of research on the history of the Second Amendment, on the history of our founding fathers. I have goosebumps just thinking about it. He started out at like, oh, let's be bipartisan, but then he realized what was happening. He realized there was a deep state.
Yeah.
Watching this kid be red-pilled is absolutely amazing. He's red-pilling himself. I get goosebumps all over me. God is all over this young man. I am so proud of him. He is taking on the other child that shall not be named. And he's doing so fervently.
He may look something like that.
And doing a really great job. Alex Jones's son has actually, he's come out of the woodwork, and he is doing some interviews on InfoWars, and he has challenged David Hogg to a debate. I find it interesting. You know, if they're going to use young people, fight fire with fire, young people with young people.
And he's much younger than this Dave.
I think they're the same age.
Well, Alex Jones' son is 15.
Oh, he is much younger than 2 years younger.
Than the other child that shall not be named, who I think is 19.
17. He's still 17 too. He might be 18. I'm not sure.
He is definitely at least 18. He's not 17 anymore.
Okay. All right. So, killer Nicholas Cruz, who was on the FBI radar, murdered 17 students and faculty members while police waited outside of the building. Kyle Kashuv is a conservative student from Parkland, Florida. I don't even think he knew he was a conservative until he started to realize he's just, I don't even call him conservative, just a red-pilled kid.
Intelligent.
In an interview with the Gateway pundit's Cassandra Fairbanks in February, he stated that his right-wing views had led him to being hated by his fellow students and labeled as an enemy of the movement. I'm going to get to another article here where Stephen Crowder, goes on to explain the bullying that went on since middle school of Nicholas Cruz by the very students leading the march. The little bald girl, you know.
Emma Gonzalez. Or the other child that shall not be
named. And last night, Kyle Kashuv went off on an unhinged student radical, the student shall not be named. He tweeted out, "It is difficult to think of someone who has focused more on fear and less on facts than the student that shall not be named." He then took the liberal student activists to the woodshed thread. He says, "It is difficult to think of someone who has focused more on fear and less on facts." And he tweets out to the student that shall not be named, "The media took an interest in him to push an agenda. They've propped people up and have turned them into shields. I am not doubting anyone's sincerity, but people have certainly been hiding behind my classmates to push an agenda. They've agreed to work with organizations like the Women's March, who have affiliations with Louis Farrakhan, a known anti-Semite. Regardless of what they think, the cause was hijacked by Hollywood and became a Hollywood event. The March for Our Lives had so much potential to be pure and grassroots, but became very far from that. It was exactly what the conservatives hate and what liberals love. At this point, with millions of dollars involved, every student, including myself, has become a pawn in a game of chess. And the fact that he is saying that is so mature and so wise, because he is even a pawn in this game. People have just experienced a horrific tragedy. We're now on the national stage propped up. On the national stage propped up by millions of dollars. It is too late to back out. Armed with little facts and lots of feelings, my peers made their way onto major networks to spread their message. First, CNN holds a town hall hosted by Jake Tapper, who worked for Handgun Control, Inc., which was incredibly biased to start. While everyone was invited to attend the event, not a single conservative was allowed to ask a question. This stage was used for smearing of honorable individuals for no reason at all. Jake Tapper, who I would consider an honorable man and a good journalist, didn't object once and allowed my peers to show no regard for a U.S. senator. It was appalling to watch and unbearable. One of my peers had the gall to say, "Senator Rubio, it's hard to look at you and not look down the barrel of an AR-15 and not look at Nicholas Cruz." The peer also said, I wish I could have asked the NRA lady, Lash, a question. Would ask her how she can look in the mirror considering the fact that she has children. This is all just at the town hall and before the March for Our Lives was getting going. While many people have said many hogwash statements, the one person who has crossed many, many lines is, the student shall not be named. He has said inflammatory things. Our parents don't have to know, don't know how to use an effing democracy, so we have to. And the left has stood by it without condemnation. We're not going to play that one again. Calling NRA members murderers is not okay. For some reason, David has no problem blaming every innocent person he wants, but has no problem defending the coward of Broward for absolutely no reason other than to push his narrative. David lacks an understanding of what the NRA does and who its members are. He says, he puts out a tweet. If you're not taking our guns, why does your website explicitly say ban the sale of assault weapons? Because he says, we're not trying to take your guns. We just don't want any more kids to die. David has also contradicted himself on multiple occasions. Things he said indicate he doesn't actually know what he wants.
True. It goes back to the backpack thing.
Right. David also lacks a basic understanding of what laws are currently on the books. This indicated a lack of understanding on the fundamentals of what he's fought for and against. Then he ostracizes Senator Rubio, saying he can never do enough despite him being swift to action and was influential, passing all the legislation that has been passed. I'm going to play this one.
He's going to make laws that get him reelected, but actually don't have any major effect.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not a Marco Rubio spokesperson, but now that I've heard what he's doing behind the scenes, he is sponsoring all of these various bills, two of which were part of the omnibus, and so things are happening. And all I'm suggesting is that maybe your ire is misplaced, since he is actually trying to work across the aisle.
Yeah, I think it's a great step that he's trying to work across the aisle, but I think so long as he's supported by the NRA, no matter what he does, there's always going to be loopholes in anything that he does.
And he calls for, Rubio to be, whatever.
So I'm going to tell you how that question went down. When you take you have to in order for somebody to look strong, there has to be a debate. Okay? This child is only going to be on these leftist networks there. So, I can never remember that lady's name, but she's always the one that deals with these PSYOP kids, like the Syrian girl and whatnot from CNN. And so she poses a sound-minded fact about Rubio that seems to make sense, and she's the newscaster, which then leads into allowing the child that shall not be named to come back with a rebuttal that makes him sound intelligent and strong enough to stand up against a newscaster. Okay, do you see how that worked out? And so they're playing this psyop on the people's minds that are watching, like, wow, look at that kid. He really knows his stuff. You know what I mean? And so she played right into that. That was on purpose.
Right.
She didn't want to have to say that. She didn't want to have to swallow those words about Marco Rubio, All
right, so this is Emma Gonzalez, and she has come out to say that she is proud of bullying Nicholas Cruz. And as early as middle school. And I'm going to read you some of this from Stephen Crowder. In an event where you, her, and all your other weepy, whiny cohorts marched against the Second Amendment rights of Americans who had nothing to do with the events in Parkland, not only did Emma admit to ostracizing the shooter, she wasn't sorry for it. In an interesting development considering how the young man turned out. Meanwhile, all of you student-turned-activists are blaming the NRA, legal gun owners, and in some cases Marco Rubio for what happened in Parkland. Do you see where I'm going with this? Let me break it down for you. If you've admitted, as Emma has, that you have ostracized the shooter as early as middle school, you've admitted a person, not a tool not the tool used, is responsible for the shooting. Specifically, a person you made feel excluded. If a person is responsible for his actions, as a shooter is, then a group of opportunistic anti-gun shills actively campaigning against a group which had no involvement in the shooting, the NRA, is irresponsible at best, malicious at worst. Some might say you're engaging in bullying tactics. Seems to me if anyone played a role in the shooter's motive, if anyone contributed to the shooter's actions, neither Marco Rubio or the NRA are to blame. Am I blaming you for what the shooter did? No. Even if someone is bullied into a spiraling depression that may lead to suicide, a person's actions are ultimately their own. See, unlike you, I believe people are responsible for their actions. You are responsible for your actions. The shooter is responsible for his. What I do find impressive is the gall you have, while knowing you may have tormented what would one day become a mass school shooter, you're actually blaming the NRA, a group made up of legal gun owners who didn't know the shooter, who didn't actively bully or ostracize the young man as early as 12 or 13. If I were a clinical psychologist, I would say that you are using psychological projection, a defense mechanism, saying somebody else is guilty of what you're guilty of. Certainly, a school shooting is a credible reason to employ a subconscious defense mechanism. After a horror of a school shooting, people look for something to blame, typically just one easily identifiable thing, and run with it. Rather than taking the time to analyze what went wrong, where it went wrong, and the system that broke down to prevent it, people blame an agreed upon entity. It's easier to blame the gun. It's easier to blame the NRA. You have to look for what is called a motive. If we were to talk about the Parkland shooter, I'd have to guess the motive behind the shooting was not the NRA didn't let me sit with them. If I had to guess the motive behind his shooting, it wasn't that students rallied in a group to march against bullying or march for kindness. No, it's that he hated you, the students. The same students who made him feel less for years. You haven't changed. You're actively trying to bully guns out of the hands of law-abiding gun owners. So pardon me if I see your weepy faces as you demand I surrender my gun rights. I kindly tell you to go away. It's not my fault if you're feeling in any way guilty for how you treated someone who shut your school up, again, as an early 12 or 13-year-old. Let's review. The NRA did not fail to act on 39 police reports about the Parkland shooter. The police did. It wasn't Marco Rubio who failed to act upon the credible tips the shooter might snap and take down a school. The FBI did. Dana Lesh didn't tell officers to stand down outside the building as the Parkland shooter pulled the trigger. Scott Peterson did. It wasn't Wayne LaPierre who passed up request to involuntarily commit the shooter. It's unclear at this point who did. Gun-owning Americans didn't ostracize the shooter. You did. I'm going to leave it at that.
So, here's the thing. Unfortunately, these children think that they are adults.
Right.
And I could see, I'm going to go this far. You may disagree with me. I could see how if there is an evil person, let's say Charles Manson or whatever. This is the best thing I can come up with. Charles Manson. He did all of that stuff. Murdered lots of people. I can see if you had ever had an opportunity in Charles Manson's life to... don't know what that was, to have had one up on him or to pick on him or say something, whatever, you might be a little bit proud of that. What Emma doesn't understand is that her brain is still forming. Nicholas Cruz, his brain, still in that formative stage. And especially when you are a child, the circumstances with which you are accustomed to or whatever you experience shape you. They literally make you who you are. They make a mass murderer. Yeah, there are some mental problems. There are people that are just born psychopaths and they shoot people up. There are people who become psychopathic because of things that were done to them as a child. Emma, you don't understand psychology. Any psychologist will tell you that children that do these kinds of things do them because of experiences that have happened to them. They were not raised right. They were not nurtured right. They had a series of bad things happen that caused their brain to not develop correctly, and then they commit such an atrocity.
Right.
And so it's not an adult saying about another adult that they did this, that they stood up to this bully beforehand or whatever. It is a contributing factor.
Right.
And so you can't be proud of that. You can't be proud, because then that is you saying, I am proud that I contributed to the death of these 17 students.
Right. All right, so we're gonna take a second, and now we're gonna switch gears. We're gonna go on to the we went from the child that shall not be named to the religion that shall not be named. It's our play on Voldemort and things like that. Now, you're not hearing a lot about this, but it has come out today that Muslims, sorry I said it, the religion that shall not be named, met at a mosque to plot jihad massacres at the World Cup. The gang was in fact a sleeper unit. It was created to support terrorism, its propaganda and funding. New members were recruited in Sabornia Mosque, in halal cafes, in Krasnovarsk, whatever. Why didn't the vast majority of peaceful people from the religion that shall not be named in the Sabornia Mosque rise up and cast out these extremists? I don't know. So I guess terror cops swoop, dramatic moment, ISIS sleeper cell is busted in Russia while plotting attacks during the World Cup. This is from The Sun. Dramatic footage shows the FSB raids on a suspected Russian terror group just 2.5 months before the start of the World Cup. The large sleeper cell was broken up by Vladimir Putin's security service in the Siberian city of Krasnoyarsk. The FSB agents smashed their way through the doors and windows and nabbed alleged terrorists moments before they caught a crowded flight. There was no immediate information on whether attacks were planned on the passenger flight or if they were for during the football tournament. The FSB has stated that terrorism is the #1 threat to the FIFA World Cup, which opens on the 14th of June. The secretive group called themselves the Krasnoyarsk Jamaat. The FSB alleged it had links to international terrorist organizations and possibly ISIS. Some 16 addresses were searched and 9 alleged jihadists were detained, 3 organizers and 6 cell members. Manuals on manufacturing explosive devices and banned religious literature was seized.
Pause right there, because I know that there's a 30-second lag here, and sometimes people leave pertinent comments on the previous subject that I want to get to before it leaves.
Oh, go ahead.
Mike Skidmore says Nicholas Cruz was born with fetal alcohol syndrome. I can't confirm that. I don't know that that's true. But let's just say for a second that it is true.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if that happens to you. If you are raised in a loving home environment and you are not picked on by kids at school, you will not turn into a mass murderer. You just won't. So yes, I'm sure that was a contributing factor, okay? But what happens to you as a child will shape and make you, and so that may make you more prone. So not every kid that has, bad mom issues or is picked on at school is going to become a mass murderer. Maybe maybe that sort of thing will make you more prone to doing it. Right. But it absolutely has to do with your environment and your experiences.
Get my environment fixed. So
thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah. So here's the raid. They have it.
Wow.
Knowing Russia, I'm just gonna throw it out there. You never know. It could be staged. But I'll tell you what. I wouldn't want to be a terrorist in a Russian prison.
True story.
No way, Jack.
Wow.
But, they found those materials, so I don't know. Forbidden material.
I'm going to let Jasper out.
Ноги шире, руки за голову. Развернул ладони. Шире ноги. Больше прогнул.
So, yeah. I don't want to go to the World Cup. No, thanks. don't wants to go. Listen. Yeah, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling the World Cup in Russia right now. I'm not feeling this level of security. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We shall see what happens. All right, now we're going to move to Sweden and the religion that shall not be named. Into Sweden. Sweden withdraws child marriage booklet after the public backlash.
Yeah, it was kind of bad.
The Sweden government has withdrawn a controversial brochure on child marriages only hours after it sparked outrage from the members of the public.
What did you say? They're all blessing you.
I sneezed.
Oh.
The brochure entitled Information for Those Who Are Married to a Child, which was published by the Swedish Board of Health and Immigration, gave advice to newly arrived immigrants who may be involved in marriage with the minor, advising that it is inappropriate to live with their underage spouse. Swedish politician Hanif Bali commented on the brochure on Facebook, saying it did not list the consequences for breaking the law. He added that many of the countries where the migrants come from, in fact, do not have lax laws in regards to child marriage. The cases raised by the media have been Syrian citizens, even cousins. 14-year-old girls have been made pregnant by their husbands. He said and added, in Syria, the punishment for this is 9 years imprisonment and hard labor. Even in Syria, you're not allowed to get kids pregnant. So they say, oh, they're just Syrian, it's okay, blah, 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 right?
It's not okay.
The Swedish Board of Health and Immigration later withdrew the brochure and released a statement on the website stating strong reactions were the reason for its withdrawal. Sweden does not allow anyone under the age of 18 to be married in this country. However, according to current legislation, the main rule is that a marriage valid under a law of the country in which it is concluded is to be recognized by civil law in Sweden. A new legislation is currently being prepared by the government. Earlier this week, Swedish Parliament voted to ban all child marriages and refuse to recognize them in the future, despite some protests from the governing parties, which wanted to amend the ban to make several exceptions. The issue of a child marriage...
There's no exception there. There are lots of things, hang on, in life where there's exceptions. There's a rule, and there are exceptions to that rule. Let me be clear, in case you were wondering. Child marriage, there's no exception there.
Nope.
Not one. Just not one. You want to know what else, like murder? There's no exception there if it's actual murder, like in your heart. The exception would be is self-defense or something like that. There is no case here in which child marriage, there's no exception there.
There's also 150 known polygamous marriages in the country, and they set them up in like 2 houses and blah, blah, blah. The decree to stop recognizing all child marriages was not accepted by all the parties, okay?
Wow.
Robert Hanna, a member of the Liberal Party and member of the Parliament, commented on the Social Democrats' proposal for exemptions on Twitter, writing, "We demand a total ban on child marriage. It is shameful that the government wants to keep special grounds for child marriage. They are letting the girls down. Praise God for you." Swedes on social media also expressed their outrage at the government parties, with one Twitter user saying that the government stood for bigamy and child marriage, and added, "It is important for all women out there to get clear of what they perceive as feminists."
She's sitting down in the bathroom.
Aww.
Again, if you're just joining us, we're pet sitting for 2 chocolate labs. They're very adorable.
In February of last year, Swedish prosecutors dropped a criminal case involving a child marriage in which a Syrian man who was 26 had married a girl who was only 13 or 14 and then raped her. The case was dismissed because the crime occurred in Syria rather than in Sweden. In October, Swedish authorities allowed a 14-year-old pregnant asylum seeker to live with her 25-year-old, quote, husband for months until she reported him to the police for raping her. Is that fun? Are we having fun? No, we're not having fun. This is not awesome. So there's actually one more in Italy. I'm going to try to find my link here. Here we go. Algerian illegal migrant arrested after Italian church attempted terror attack. They were saying that the Vatican or whoever got some a heads up that Rome was going to be attacked. Well, a 22-year-old illegal Algerian immigrant was arrested on a charge of attempted terrorism after trying to drive a stolen car into a crowd in front of the shrine of the Pompeii Basilica, only to be stopped by concrete bollards. So I guess those ugly things work. The attempted attacker, 22-year-old migrant Otham Dridi, told police his motivation for the failed attack, saying, "I did it in the name of Allah." Dridi came to Italy after being expelled from France and was told to leave the country by the police chief of Calgary, yet remained in the country. Cagliari. Sorry.
Cagliari.
Judge Fernando Inone, an expert on international terrorism, agreed to allow prosecution against the failed asylum seeker to go ahead and ordered him to be put in pre-trial detention due to the severity of the crime. The Algerian was also charged and found guilty of 2 lesser offenses of stealing a car and lying to public officials. According to the police, after being arrested, Dridi lied about his identity and gave investigators the address of one of his friends rather than his own. When police took him to the address he gave, Dridi is said to have told his friend, "You say I live here, otherwise they will arrest me," in Arabic. That's awesome. So, Judge Inone handed down a 2.5-year sentence for the minor charges and passed all of the information to the Naples Public Prosecutor's Office, who will prosecute the terrorism charges. While there have yet been major terror attacks in Italy in recent years, a number of potential attacks have been thwarted by the Italian authorities, who have been credited with keeping the country safe from the religion that shall not be named, terror. So a report from The Economist magazine claimed that Italy's long-standing battle with the mafia, as well as experience in dealing with terrorism in past decades, has made authorities much better equipped to deal with Islamic terror than many other European counterparts. So there is an upside to the mafia in Italy, because we know what is going down. We know how to follow the people and doing the secret things in the secret places. So we follow the people doing the secret things in the secret places, and we stop them from doing the bad things that they decide to do in secret. All right, so that's it.
That's your show for the day.
Yeah, we're almost at 2 hours.
We are almost at 2 hours, and we have some mail and things to go over, but
I didn't stop talking for 2 hours, Ernie. That was a lot of news.
You did pretty good. Your voice sounded like it was getting... We missed you guys.
We have been busy. It's spring break here in the great US of A, and it's our busiest time of year, so we're just happy to be with you right now. Michelle.
Right. I actually was pretty excited. I was getting a little bit giddy.
If you didn't see Michelle's video last night, check that out. She showed you our plans and what we've been doing homesteading-wise.
I talked about the seeing the Paul Apostle of Christ.
Okay, cool.
Video. So Forging Freedom podcast channel, you guys can go and subscribe to that, poses a very interesting observation, which I think about a lot. So I thought it would be worth throwing out there. Throw Leah a bone, see what she has to say about it. Polygamy is an interesting topic since it's practiced in the Old Testament, not condoning one way or the other. I think about that a lot when it comes to this whole polygamy thing, whether you're talking about the Mormons or whether you're talking about Islam or the religion that shall not be named. They say you got to put $1 in the bucket, they're telling me. My opinion is that because Forging Freedom channel also came back and said it seems like, you know, Abraham had wives and concubines. God seems like he didn't have a problem with it. There were a lot of things that God allowed, given the time and given the era. God also was not pleased with sacrifices. Did you know that?
I have no pleasure
in the
blood of bulls and goats.
But it had to be. So there were a lot of things that God was not, it was not in God's design for a man to have more than one wife. You know how we know that?
Because he gave Adam
Because he only gave Adam Eve. So there were things that God permitted, but it did not seem like he was pleased with it. As a matter of fact, we see sometimes God's anger, especially with the concubines. We see that
Hagar being sent away, and Ishmael being, and God's just so angry about that. He's like, why did you take matters into your own hands? And to me, I see that as in vitro fertilization. I feel like that is sinful and it's wrong, and you should not take that kind of life into your own hands. And so they didn't have in vitro fertilization, and if they wanted to get pregnant, they had a concubine in order to have somebody of your own seed. That's just the way things were done. It does not make it right.
Right.
But a lot of the times is, number one, they didn't have Jesus, right? So they were going by their own mind.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, you're going to talk.
I'm sorry. I just want to straighten you out a little bit because we're in 2018, and we're talking about 100 years ago. Men were not obsessed, and women are not obsessed with sex. TV, radio, all this stuff blares it into your head. I mean, the music is all in your head. Right. I mean, it's obsession. I mean, they hardly ever slept together. Really, they didn't. They weren't obsessed with it. Right. If you're out there with a horse, couple horses, and a plow, and you're cutting trees down, and you're digging out big fat roots, and you have to bake bread.
They had a lot of babies.
They had a lot of children. But if you read in Sarah and Sarah and Isaac, who was it? Jacob and Sarah and Leah, Rachel and Leah. The women almost had to beg him. Come, it's my turn tonight.
Mom, you're making me sick.
And it was like it wasn't. And then Isaac, he didn't marry till he was 40. Rebecca. A lot of these people don't get married till they're 40. They had to make sure they could provide for even in America. Right. You have to be able to provide. You have to have a career. Right. You have to be like 30 years before you get married. Right. So we're twisted. We can't go with what we've heard in history and think that we can understand it because we have been polluted and our minds are so filthy.
It was a very different time that many people don't understand. We see a lot of the gods back then that they worshipped, and even the children of Israel worshipped these gods so many times. We're talking about the idols being taken down, and we think, well, why wouldn't they just take them down? It was a culture. It was a thing. God was not happy with that. There were a lot of kings in the Old Testament that say that they did right in the eyes of the Lord, except they didn't take down those idols in the temple, and yet somehow they still did right in the eyes of the Lord. It's really hard to reconcile your mind to those kinds of things, how God could be pleased with someone and not be pleased with everything that they were doing.
The best way I have to explain it is like with the religion that shall not be named, we're in 2018. Right. Jesus came, he died, he rose again, and the best way to look at the Old Testament is through the eyes of the New Testament. Mm-hmm. What was God's original purpose? What did God really talk about? So Jesus would say, I hate divorce. God hates divorce, but because of your hardness of your heart, except for adultery, don't get divorced. Yeah. But then he says, even if you want to stone people who are caught in adultery, but you're all lusting. As soon as you lust after somebody, you're already in adultery, right? So Jesus basically lays out one man, one woman, one heart, one true heart for one person, right? And Jesus basically, you don't even need to lust after other people, right? And then again, Paul in the New Testament, when he's setting up people who are into the church, a husband of one wife. Even the Old Testament talks about one wife. And when you step out of those bounds into polygamy, you see animosity between Rachel and Leah.
It is not to be desired. It's actually a very painful story to read about Jacob and Leah, or any time that these women gave concubines to their husbands. The Bible does not paint that in a beautiful light, in something that should be desired.
The thing about the Old Testament that you should appreciate is that it's raw, and it's unfiltered, and it doesn't paint the heroes as perfect. Right? These are imperfect beings.
Look at David, Bathsheba,
who did not have Jesus inside of them. Jesus helps us to overcome all sin, right? They didn't have Jesus. They didn't have the Holy Spirit within them, walking with them. Jesus said, I'm going to leave you my comforter. He's going to give you power to overcome all these temptations that are flooding your direction. And when it comes to religion that shall not be named, they don't have a Jesus moment. They don't have a turn from the sacrifices and the polygamy and the perversion and things like that went on. I mean, in the time of even the Roman Colosseums, they're still throwing people to the lion. You know, within the past 400 or 500 years, even Christians, it was such a dark age, the Middle Ages. They're burning people at the stake. We don't do that kind of stuff anymore. Why? Because Christianity has taken a hold. We really got into the gospel. We see what Jesus meant. Right. Christianity has civilized the world, and even civilized the Old Testament, which was, I mean, Jesus, our God, created the law as parameters, right? But when it talks about stoning, I mean, because a lot of people will bring up stoning in the Old Testament and things like that. But Jesus comes to explain, thank God, Jesus came to explain Listen, you without sin cast that first stone.
Right.
God hates sin, but when you're full of sin and you're trying to punish somebody in sin, you can't do it. So that is that.
Our mom had said after my video last night, she said, we need more, God stuff. We need to talk about more about God on the show. And then I have other viewers that are like, there's too much God on this show. Well, you know what? There can't be too much God anywhere. So let's move on to, all right, so Robert, Kansas is not here. And you sent him a birthday card.
Yes.
And in that birthday card was an envelope that said, it said, Kansas, please hand this to Michelle for me. Now, we didn't open this on air. We just opened it up. And within that envelope was gift cards to go to Golden Corral for Kansas's birthday. I think we were supposed to open that on air. We've already gone to Golden Corral for Kansas's birthday.
Yep.
It was very delicious.
So thank you for that.
So thank you for that. Open that up. I don't have a knife here. I think that's from Daily.
We have here, this is one of these awesome paracord things. So if you're ever stuck, it's actually got, I think it's got several things on it. It's a bracelet with a compass on it as well. And I have yet to decide what this is. So if you guys can tell me.
It's a little saw.
Is it a little saw?
Definitely got to be a little saw.
A little saw. Okay, a little saw.
Definitely.
This is like this old house where you decide, what is this? What is this used for?
That's awesome. That's really, really cool.
There you go.
I love that. That is fantastic.
We also have these beautiful tulips.
Robert had sent these for...
They smell amazing.
Easter. They are absolutely beautiful. So, thank you very much, Robert, for the gift card to Kansas. Gift cards, I should say. And the tulips. I never really knew that tulips smelled really good.
They're really... Yeah, I did. But yeah.
They smell really, really good.
Royal Mail. I love Royal Mail, by the way. Absolutely love Royal Mail. So check this out. Spitfire Scramble, the Rothbury collection. Okay, here we go. Dear Michelle. Oh, dear Michelle.
Dear Michelle. God bless your endeavors. Jesus reigns. Please check out Shadow Government Collapsing if you have a spare moment. This item was published on YouTube on the 18th of March by Douglas Gabriel and Michael McGibbon of American Intelligence Media. It's startling. In my view, this spotlight upon the SES goes a long way towards explaining the challenges facing your president. I hope that the cry for freedom, or for reform, of the SES will find a platform with the chicks. Of course, electoral reform such as identifying electors, returning to paper ballots, and possibly limiting congressional tenures to 2 terms
is arguably also
vital. However, if there remains, notwithstanding elections, an all-powerful civil service elite which does not sympathize with a focused patriotic resurgence complemented by Christian principles, the best efforts of President Trump will be continually thwarted. Please mention the SES, because if you don't, who will? Who has heard of them? Well, now I'll get off of my soapbox. Best yours in Christ, English pro-American viewer. So that's from Barry. Thank you very, very much for that. That's actually a really cool card.
I love to hear what you guys have to say, and I love to hear Christian ideals coming out of England. It gives me hope.
Who's crying?
I don't know.
Sydney's crying.
No, it wasn't Sydney.
I just heard her crying.
No, she's right there.
Oh, I don't know what that was then. All right, so then we got this really cute pink card here from Elizabeth in Virginia. Fairfax, Virginia, by the way. Dear Leah and Michelle, just wanted to drop a line and say how much I appreciate your videos and viewpoints. I live in the liberal enclave of the DC metro area. Frown. And it's near impossible to find people like you here. Watching your videos is an encouragement, Liz.
That's awesome.
Thank you very much for that,
They're not
Liz.
all swamp creatures in DC.
And Liz is the proof of that. So also, Eric, a.k.a. Donald Buskey on here, and his sister Marlene, and Marlene's husband, Tom, actually drove through Milford on their way back from a funeral, sadly, that they had to go to. But we were not able to see them. However, they stopped by our post office and took some pictures. They got a picture of a Trump supporter. They went down to the Milford gun shop. And Marlene left this note. They actually mailed something to us from the post office. Dear Leah and Michelle, hi, I'm in Milford, Ohio today, March 27th, 2018. Happy 40th birthday to Matthew David. Amazing family news. Oh, I can't tell you what that is, but she knows what it is. We will be praying best wishes. I'm with Eric, my brother. My husband, Tom, came along, and her daughter and family are still down in Florida. And she says, Eric wants you to wear the spy glasses when you tour CNN. Ha ha, LOL. Love, Marlene. So she included this.
They must have picked that up.
CNN Studio Tours 30th anniversary. That sounds fantastic. And she left a card for Patriot Gallery and Kansas, which we will be giving to them. So we got that. And then let's see. There's a card here from Kelly. Not Kelly, our moderator, another
Florence.
Kelly.
We are the Venus Mitchell. Florence. Sorry.
And speaking of Kelly, our moderator, she said she's got a package on the way. Her husband showed up using their son's chat name just a little bit ago.
Nestflix. An excellent day. Have an excellent day.
Excellent.
Binge on all fun you can this Easter. Michelle, Leah, Patriot Gallery, and Matt, Kansas Matt. Remember when I said that I had been baptized? I don't know if you want me to read it. She wants me to read it. Well, okay, I'm just going to read it. Remember when I told you I'd been baptized when I was a baby and never really gave God a look? Well, I wanted to let you know on the first day of Lent, I purchased a King James Version Bible and have begun to read it. I need to read it slowly in order to truly absorb the words of God, but I am enjoying the experience slow and steady, right? Your friend Kelly from California. That
is fantastic.
Fantastic.
And her name's Kelly Fish on here, by the way, for those of you. You can give her a little shout out and encouragement to read that King James Version Bible.
I am very excited for that.
All right, so lastly, we actually have a rather large package here.
Wow, is this the one?
This is the one from Buzz.
Okay, right. I was thinking it might be from Poland, but it's not. Okay.
No. We didn't have another package.
So Buzz followed us last year a lot, very heavily. He was watching 2 or 3 hours of YouTube at night, and then he said he realized that that's what he was doing, and so he hasn't been really watching YouTube. But he got on the other night. He watched the birthday video Michelle put together, and he watches doing packages. So he went all out, crazy dude. He sent us some.
He said not to read their letter on, but that's not the letter.
Right. So he sent us some seeds for our garden. He said he has a small garden and he wishes he had land for a bigger garden. The onion starts. I've got onion starts. They're sweet Walla Walla onions, and they're the best onions in the world. And Walla Walla is a town in eastern Washington known for its onions, and so they are soaking, ready to be planted.
I'm showing them the seeds that were included. You can pull one of the books. He sent several books.
So if you guys don't know who Ravi Zacharias is, he is this amazing, I believe he's Indian guy. He does these
Native American.
I don't think he's.
Oh, he's like from India. Oh, he's Indian. He really is Indian. Yeah. Okay. Amazing Indian man.
Yeah, he's the founder of Ravi Zacharias International Ministries, headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, and he does all these like Christian apologetic tours, and I just love this guy. Jesus Among the Secular Gods, that's one of them. You guys know one of our favorite chicks is Brigitte Gabriel.
Brigitte.
So, Because They Hate You, a survivor of Islamic terror warns America.
I'm excited about that book,
actually. Very powerful book. And he says, look at this up online. His friends go to the meeting, Act for America. ACT, Act for America. Check them out for sure. Knowing God, J.I. Packer.
This one,
500 plus Islamic words you should know. The Encyclopedia of the Religion That Shall Not Be Named. Wow. I am actually afraid to read this. So, Beyond Opinion, Ravi Zacharias, Living the Faith We Defend. And The Pursuit of God by Tozer. A.W. Tozer, great man of God. One more. Here we go.
No, there's two more.
Two more. The 3 Essential Books in One Volume. Francis A. Schaeffer. The God who is there, escape from reason. He is there and he is not silent.
So this is actually really hilarious.
Yeah. Check this one out, guys.
There's a pig on the front.
The politically incorrect guide to Islam and the Crusades. But you think you know about Islam, but did you know Islam teaches that Muslims must wage war to impose Islamic law on non-Muslim states? American Muslim groups are engaged in huge cover-up as Islamic doctrine and history. Today's jihad terrorists have the same motives and goals as the Muslims who fought the Crusades. The Crusades were defensive conflicts. Muslim persecution of Christians has continued for 13 centuries and still goes on. By Robert Spencer.
Robert says, dude sent the entire library. But these are all fantastic books.
Yes, I'm going to set these over here while you show him the weapons he also sent.
Now, the knife that I often pull out, just because it's really fun, is the first switchblade I've ever had, which is probably why I carry it and it means so much to me. Buzz sent that to us. It's a Kershaw. Last year for Leah's birthday. So I've had that knife for over a year. So he saw fit to send us more weapons. But before the weapons, he also sent these fire starters. Like, how cool is that? These are really nice. This is absolutely fantastic. Really, really fun. Now, the next knife, and I love, listen, some people get worried about us on our show, that we're not going to be able to protect ourselves from stalkers or, you know, maybe viewers that are just not, you know, I had a nightmare actually the other night that one of our viewers was stalking me outside our window, then got and messed with my bees. I'm not down with that. Don't mess with my bees. But when we have viewers that send us weapons, I'm going to go with they're safe. So Buzz is my friend. We've never spoken, so he's really not, but he is, because he sent weapons. This is a full tang. That's what that means for those of you that do not know. The blade goes all the way through the handle. I only know that because Justin is a blacksmith and makes knives. Knife. It's a beautiful knife here. Okay. I'm really excited about this. I can wear it on my
this is
belt
from
loop.
This friendly Swede.
It literally can be attached via a belt loop. This is a really nice knife. I love this knife. But what I'm actually most excited about, which Leah is a little bit afraid of.
I don't like
Sydney,
her just
it's not your turn
out.
yet.
One moment, please.
This is a neck knife. Now I love that it goes, it really matches my Trump pin.
Yeah, it does.
Really well.
Ah! Could you not take it out around your neck? Just like lower or
I'm
to
pretty
the side.
okay. I'm pretty okay. Leah's
Please.
a little bit. This is a neck knife. Tell me this is not the coolest thing you've ever seen. I didn't even know. Listen to it. I didn't even know this thing was a thing. Didn't know. I love it. I love this. I don't know when I'm going to get an opportunity to wear it. Perhaps I can just wear it every day when I'm pet sitting. I don't know. But it's fantastic. A neck knife.
Yep.
Does anybody here, redneck survivalists, know what a neck knife, what would be the practical application aside from just having a handy weapon right next to your face? I don't know, but I really like it a lot.
Could you just be careful with it?
I am being very careful with it, actually.
Just be careful.
I will continue to be very careful.
So we now have the stun gun, taser. Which one?
We have a stun gun.
It's
right there.
Yeah.
Bring it back on. Bring it back on.
We showed them already.
No, we didn't.
Yes, we did.
No, we didn't. Yeah, but I want to see it again.
We showed them this.
Yeah, but
so we now have a viewer sending this. We don't play with it. I feel like
you
play with
Where's
things way too much. It's right here.
Okay, I'm going to show him.
No.
Just one time.
No.
It's not playing.
No. I don't want you to. I think it's dangerous.
I just want to show him one time.
No, we have too much electronic equipment going on right now.
I want to show him one time.
It believes. No. You have to take this in and out. This is me saying no to my sister.
This is me.
We know how to use it.
Being able to tell when Leah's serious, and I'm not allowed. Even though she's smaller than I am. She is my big sister. I got to fire it out the other night. You're only supposed to hold it for a second. The only thing actually that had me stop was you said the electronic equipment, and I was like, yeah.
We don't want to catch anything on fire.
But it went like that. So yeah, thank you guys. Very, very generous. This is an excellent mail call. I love the letters. I actually just realized the other day that for your birthday, we got a letter from somebody wanting information on homeschooling.
Oh, right. And you still need to get
We
that
have
back.
not replied to that yet.
Yes.
So, there's Caesar again. Was that a bottle opener on the blade? No. No. Where does the knife go? The big one. This is for, it's for fishing.
I thought it was for big game.
It's for fishing. It's for big game. Like, so when we butcher our pigs, I don't have the other knife that we have that a lot of times you need to cut open the stomach.
But you don't want to get the guts.
But you don't want to get the guts. And so this will allow you to run the blade along the stomach and literally slice it open.
Why don't you tell them what you had for breakfast?
So today, I had an excellent, fantastic, it's a gut hook, as Robert accurately describes it as.
Just a minute.
I was really excited about this. I made a Facebook post. I had bacon, eggs, bread with honey and butter and milk. That may not sound that exciting to anybody else besides the fact that it's just awesome. But why is my breakfast specifically awesome? Because the bacon is from pigs that we raised, that we slaughtered, that we butchered, and bacon that we actually cured ourselves. It's a big deal to cure bacon. To smoke it and things like that. The eggs are from chickens that we have. We get our eggs fresh. Shoot.
Got it.
Good save. Her foot got caught up on the speaker cord. The bread is bread that Leah makes from scratch. A lot of people make bread, but Leah actually takes the wheat and she grinds it. We've got a bicycle with a wheat grinder. She grinds that wheat and then she makes the bread. This was the best bread that she's ever made. Actually, it was really good. The honey that I put on my bread comes from our bees that we raise. We have our own bees. And the milk that I was drinking comes from our friends who are Amish that are local. And that milk is grass-fed, without hormones. It is raw. And it is real food. And I was sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, I am eating a locally sourced meal that I did not have to go to the grocery store for. And that is an incredibly freeing and fulfilling feeling. We went from being city gals. We were raised in apartments practically our entire lives. I was one of those people that didn't know that chickens could lay eggs without a rooster. I didn't know that. There were a lot of things that I just did not know. And now I ate an entire meal practically that came from my house. With meat, with eggs, dairy, with honey. So that is what Resistance Chicks is. That is what we are all about here. We want to get the entire world back to real living, where you're not dependent upon someone else, something else, to bring your food source. And it's not just because you don't want to be dependent. It's because it is actually the best way to live. It's the way that God designed it to live. It is fulfilling. You're actually full after you've had a meal like that, but you're satisfied knowing that you had a hand in it. The other day when we butchered those 2 hogs, the day that we slaughtered and the day that we butchered was excruciatingly long. We were tired. At the end, we kind of got irritable, but that feeling of satisfaction when you're done. And then every time you eat something, a product from that, whether it's bacon or ham or a pork chop or sausage or whatever, you're just like, I did this. We did this. God put his hand of blessing on this. And we're actually, Leah, the camera, we're actually getting ready to have piglets here soon. So
when we do, we will take you guys out.
Yes, when we do, we will take you guys out and we'll go live for that. Leah was literally sitting down there cuddling dogs. If you're like, where's
a
Leah?
lot of dogs doing they just needed attention.
They did need attention there. So, chickens are made of real chickens. Chicken as well. Yeah, exactly. Very true. I know you guys left a lot of good comments there. Speaking of which, when you when this video processes, I know the live chat plays back, but I would appreciate it if you, I don't watch the live chat back. I don't. But I do go back and I read the comments. So if you left a comment that we missed that's pertinent, I want you to go back and leave it. So I want to also thank all of our moderators that were here. Donna Terry, Britt Baza, Gary, Kelly, Worth a Look. Probably missing somebody here. I feel like I am. I think Sooks was here for a while. Stacy Rosa Sharon was here for a while. But you guys are awesome.
I know this is for something. I just don't know what.
I don't know. That's a really good question. Are we going to sing a song? Did I say sing?
Well,
we're going to sing.
You got one?
I did. What was the song you wanted me to sing the other day?
I don't know.
Is that a thing? That's not a thing.
I don't know.
No. Did it come with something?
I didn't know. No instructions.
It didn't come with any instructions. Just this plastic bag.
Yeah. So to figure it out. It's always part of the challenge.
Let's see. Foraging Freedom Channel says, for instance, I hatched 2 dozen eggs last summer. Some of them didn't hatch. Ended up with 5 roosters and the rest were hens. Kept the biggest, nicest rooster and put the other 4 in the freezer.
We do that a lot.
We do that a lot.
You want to sing this one?
Do we know the whole thing? Or are we going to butcher it?
This cornerstone. Yeah, you know it.
The whole thing?
No. You just start out.
No, you start it.
No, you start, because then when we turn our thing off, you can't say I started too high.
In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm from the fiercest drought and storm. What heights of love, what depths of peace, when fears are stilled, when striving cease. My comforter, my all in all, here in the love of Christ I'll stand. In Christ alone, who took on flesh, fullness of God in helpless babe, this gift of love and righteousness, scorned by the ones he came to save, till on that cross as Jesus died, the wrath of God was satisfied. For every sin on him was laid, here in the death of Christ I live. There on the ground his body lay, light of the world by darkness slain. Then bursting forth in glorious day, up from the grave he rose again. And as he stands in victory, sin's curse has lost its grip on me. For I am his, and he is mine, bought with the precious blood of Christ. No guilt in life, no fear in death. This is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry to final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from his hand, till he returns or calls me home. Here in the power of Christ I'll stand. Hey, that's a good song.
I love that song.
So, here's the question.
Yo, I don't know. We'll try to make it happen.
Are we going to be here on Easter Sunday?
I don't know. we have a lot of stuff going on. If we can make it happen, we'll make it happen. If we can't make it happen, we love you, and we will see you on Monday.
True. If we do not go live on Easter, which we will try to do,
we'll send out a message or something. It just might not be a
Facebook
show.
or Twitter.
Right.
Yeah, I would like to try to do it. I have my Easter song.
Yeah.
That we like to do.
Yeah, we might. It might not be a Europe thing. It may just be songs and stuff.
We'll see. We shall see.
Maybe we'll practice.
Happy Good Friday.
Some on the Happy Good Friday
to all of you. And thank you guys for being here. Thank you for the mail call, Robert. Thank you for the flowers, the knives, the cards, the letters, everything. So you guys are absolutely fantastic.
To like, comment, and subscribe to Mass Faith 3. Tell them a little update.
I did last night, but I'll give another one because I don't know how many people saw my video from last night, but I got this random message and I hadn't been hearing from YouTube for like a month. They just completely shut me down. They're ignoring me.
Saying our engineers can't fix your problem. Sorry,
she said, you know what? Our engineers can't fix your problem about our live streaming issue on our Mass Faith 3 channel. So I said very kindly that I had a lot of faith in those engineers and I believed that they could definitely fix the problem. So then she messaged me back and then she said, well, your live streaming ability may be revoked because of A, B, and C. And I'm like, well, if it's a problem that they can't fix or it's my live streaming ability being revoked, which one is it?
Bunch of lies coming out the mouth.
Yeah, so they're definitely the king of spin doctor there over at YouTube that we're streaming on right now.
What we're hoping is that we did have a copyright takedown on the Jordan Peterson video, and that
was on the 17th.
April 17th, we'll get our live streaming back.
At which point we will return to our main channel. Because we have over 10,000 subscribers there. And the notification of our live streaming gets spread to all 10,000 of those people that have their notifications turned on. So it will reach farther. And those of you that are always here with us know, and you will easily be able to switch back over. So that is the plan. So pray that that's what happens.
The reason we've always known it was because of the Jordan Peterson video. But if you have a copyright takedown, then you have a strike against your account. And you have a little thing, and it will tell you this is the channel that said that that you were a
copyright
infringement, and you have a way to appeal that. Well, if we don't have that link, then we don't have a way to appeal it.
Right.
So,
and we were never given that ability or notification of a copyright infringement. The video itself doesn't have a copyright infringement on it. It's
a copyright takedown literally takes down your video.
And the video is still there. So what I expressed very kindly back to the lady is what I'm afraid of. And I said, I have no problem waiting. We've gone this far. I can wait the extra, 18 days at this point, 18, 19 days. What I'm afraid of is that that isn't the reason why we're having this issue. And when the 90 days is up, we're still going to have this problem. And I would like to get it resolved before then. So we shall see. Cecilia Gal says they're lying to you. So what says they did not even tell you who did that? Absolutely no, they did not. So what says it may take 2 or 3 days longer. He's had his channel had a copyright takedown on it and things like that. So not copyright. I think his was just like censorship. So anyway,
they got these little German trolls that just watch every German video.
They literally, they have hired 10,000 people to do what they're doing to us.
Right.
There are channels that are far bigger than ours that have been completely taken down.
We're being unsubscribed from truther channels right and left that we subscribe to. So,
Sunday wants to know on Facebook Live how the mommy pigs are doing.
They're doing really well. They're doing really well. They're really close. We'll let you know. It could be tonight. It could be tomorrow. I expect it really soon.
So perhaps we will be going live on Easter because we're going live about a piggy video. We don't know. So anyway, happy Easter. Happy Passover. We don't celebrate April Fool's Day, but the joke's on everyone else because he is risen.
Yo! Boom.
All right. We love you. God loves you. God bless. And enjoy the rest of your Friday night. We are headed back to work because we're working this weekend.
That's what we do, Bubby.
That's what we do.
That's what we do.
All right. Bye, guys.
And the dogs.
I was cold all alone. Your